The universe listened as humanity whispered its final words. Across the stars, on 1,000 alien worlds, in the halls of kings and the chambers of scholars, the transmission echoed, a message wrapped in sorrow, laced with longing, filled with the weight of finality. To those who hear this, we do not ask for rescue. It is too late for us. The earth is dying, and we with her. The voice, though cracked with grief, remains steady. It belonged to an old man, his wrinkled face dimly lit by the last, flickering power reserves of the station. He was the last to speak for his kind, a representative of a race that had reached for the stars but had now found itself unable to hold on. We were dreamers, builders, poets, and fools. We reached beyond our grasp, and for a time, we touched infinity. But even infinity cannot stop time. And time has claimed us. On the planet of Thalvos, Vecra sat frozen in place. The broadcast had interrupted her daily research, an anomaly in a world of order. The Thalvosians prided themselves on their unshakable rationality. Emotion was a relic of their past, an unnecessary burden long removed from their genetic code. And yet, as she listened to the message, something twisted inside her. If you hear this, please, remember us. That is all we ask. Not as conquerors or as victims, but as people who lived, who loved, who hoped. We do not seek your pity, only your memory. The voice wavered. A breath. A pause. We were here. And then, silence. Vecra's fingers trembled over her console. Her second set of eyelids fluttered as she forced herself to analyze, to categorize, to process the information as she had been trained to do. But no amount of training could explain the strange pressure building in her chest, the tightening of her throat, the sudden, aching sense of loss for a species she had never known. For the first time in her life, Vecra felt something she could not name. Vecra replayed the transmission, once, twice, 10 times. Each time, the human voice echoed in her mind, sending tremors through her carefully structured thoughts. The logic-driven Thalvosians did not believe in grief. They did not believe in loss. For to lose something, one must first allow themselves to care. And yet, she turned off the recording and exhaled. Her twin hearts beat unsteadily. She did not understand why. The laboratory was quiet, save for the low hum of the information stream flowing through the walls. Data scrolled across the holoscreens, analyzing the transmission in real time, human linguistic patterns, vocal stress levels, and planetary environmental collapse projections. All of it reduced to statistics. But none of it explained why her hands were shaking. Vecra was a scholar, an archivist of the Grand Knowledge Repository. Her role was to observe, to catalog, to record, not to feel. And yet, a species, one that should have been nothing more than another entry in the records, was now gone. Truly gone. And that mattered. She didn't know why it mattered. But it did. With a flick of her wrist, she accessed the galactic network. Thousands of worlds, millions of beings, all connected through a vast web of information. A message, encoded in simple words, spread across the stars. To all civilizations, the species known as humans have perished. Their final transmission has been archived. Attached is their last message. It was an action without logic. It held no benefit, no reason. Yet, as she sent the data into the void, Vecra felt something in her chest loosen, some unspoken burden she hadn't realized she was carrying. The moment the message was sent, her screen lit up with incoming transmissions. Dozens at first. Then hundreds. Then thousands. The galaxy was listening. Vecra stared at the screen, her twin hearts pounding in a way that defied logic. The silence that followed the transmission should have been a relief, a return to the ordered, predictable world of Thalvosian research. Instead, it felt deafening. She knew she should move on. Log the data. Archive the message. File it away as just another extinction among countless others recorded throughout history. But she couldn't. The human's words echoed in her mind. We do not seek your pity, only your memory. Why did that request feel heavy? Her fingers trembled over the console. Not with fear. Not with exhaustion. It was something else, something unfamiliar. Thalvosians had long abandoned emotions, stripping them from their genetic code, ensuring that their people would be driven only by reason. And yet, as she replayed the broadcast, something deep inside her ached. Could it be regret? No, impossible. She straightened, shaking off the absurd thought. But her body betrayed her. Her throat felt tight. Her mind refused to let go. With a flick of her wrist, she accessed the galactic network, a vast interstellar system linking the knowledge of 1,000 civilizations. Information flowed freely here, recorded and preserved for all time. Her fingers hesitated over the input panel before she forced them to move. To all civilizations, the species known as humans have perished. Their final transmission has been archived. Attached is their last message. She hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then, with a deep breath, she sent the message into the void. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, her screen blinked. Incoming transmissions. Dozens at first. Then hundreds. Then thousands. The galaxy was listening. Vecra sat frozen as response after response flooded the galactic network. At first, they were simple acknowledgments, confirmations that the message had been received. Then came the questions. Who were they? How did they perish? What did they leave behind? But among the inquiries were messages of a different nature. We mourn them. Their words. They move us. We did not know them, yet we feel their loss. That last message made something deep inside Vecra twist. The Thalvosians had long abandoned the idea of emotion, believing it a weakness that clouded judgment. And yet, as she stared at the words on her screen, she realized she was not the only one feeling the strange weight of humanity's absence. The galaxy was grieving. She accessed the transmission again, listening to the human's voice one more time. His words were not of anger, nor fear, nor bitterness. They were of remembrance. Of longing. Of love. We were here. The words clung to her mind like a song she could not forget. Vecra turned to her research assistants, a group of young scholars who had gathered in the archive hall. Their expressions were unreadable, neutral as always. But she could see it in the way their hands hovered over their consoles, in the way their gazes lingered on the message longer than necessary. They, too, felt it. Slowly, deliberately, Vecra addressed them. Translate the transmission into the core galactic languages, she ordered, and distribute it to every known civilization. There was a pause. A subtle hesitation. One of the assistants, a young Thalvosian named Kezran, tilted his head. For what purpose, Archivist? Vecra did not know how to answer. What purpose? It was a logical question. One that demanded a logical answer. But all she could think of was the way her chest ached at the thought of humanity fading into obscurity. Because, she said, her voice softer than it had ever been, they asked us to remember them. For the first time in Thalvosian history, a moment of silence was shared, not out of logic, not out of necessity, but out of something far more profound. The universe would remember. The human voice had gone silent, but its echo spread like ripples through the void. Vecra had never seen the galactic network so alive. The transmission, just a few simple words from a dying species, had awakened something across the stars. Messages poured in from countless worlds, filled not with cold analysis, but with something else: grief, wonder, remembrance. Entire civilizations, some of whom had never even encountered humanity before this moment, were now speaking of them as if they had lost something precious. The Andari, known for their poetry, composed entire ballads about Earth's fall. The war-hardened ZX-Till, a species that had never shed a tear in their history, held a ritual of mourning in honor of the fallen humans. The Draven, beings of living crystal, illuminated their entire homeworld in shades of blue, the color humans had once called sorrow. And Vecra. She found herself at the center of it all. She had never intended to become humanity's voice, yet the galaxy now turned to her for answers. Questions flooded her console. What remains of them? Did they leave behind anything we can preserve? Is there truly nothing left? Vecra had no answers. But she knew where to find them. The last known human outpost, Earth's final space station, still drifted through the black, abandoned and silent. If anything remained of humanity, it would be there. The decision was made before she could even rationalize it. She gathered a team: scholars, scientists, archivists. They were not explorers, not adventurers, but something had changed in them all. Something in humanity's final words had touched even the logic-bound Thalvosians. For the first time in her life, Vecra was embarking on a mission with no strategic purpose. No benefit to her people. No calculated gain. She was going because it felt right. As their ship entered hyperspace, bound for the ruins of a dead world, she whispered a silent promise to the ones who had spoken their last words into the void. We heard you. And for as long as she lived, she would make sure no one ever forgot. The dead station hung in the void, orbiting the remains of a planet that had once been called Earth. Vecra had seen destruction before. Entire planets reduced to barren husks, civilizations wiped away by war, disease, or time. But this was different. Earth was not destroyed by violence. It was not a casualty of war or an empire's greed. It had simply ended. The ship docked with the station, its metal corridors silent and still. The air was thin but breathable, the power reserves nearly depleted. The remnants of humanity's last refuge stood frozen in time, personal belongings scattered across workstations, half-finished research logs blinking weakly on holoscreens. It was as if the humans had just stepped away for a moment. But they would never return. Vecra moved carefully through the halls, her fingers grazing over dusty consoles and forgotten artifacts. Each object told a story. A child's toy, left on a desk. A photograph, edges curled with age, showing a group of humans smiling, their arms wrapped around one another. A journal, its ink faded but still legible. She swallowed hard. We were here. The final words of the human transmission echoed in her mind. Then, deep within the station, they found it. A single cryopod, intact, functioning. Inside, wrapped in a protective cocoon of technology, was a child. A human child. Vecra's breath caught. The team of scholars and scientists gathered around in stunned silence. This was not just an artifact, not just a memory of a species long gone. This was life. She activated the pod's interface, scanning the vitals, stable. The child, young, no more than 5 or 6 human years, slept peacefully, unaware of the silence that surrounded them. Vecra stared down at the sleeping form, feeling something shift within her. For so long, she had been asking what humanity had left behind. What could be preserved, remembered, honored? Now, she had her answer. Not just history, not just memory, but a future. Her twin hearts beat unsteadily as she turned to her team. We cannot leave them here, she said, her voice firm in a way it had never been before. They are the last of their kind. No one argued. For all their logic, all their reason, the Thalvosians had changed. They had learned grief, and love, and hope. And now, they would become something new. As they lifted the child from the cryopod, Vecra whispered softly, her voice filled with a promise. You are not alone. We remember. We will remember. And as the ship carried them away from the ruins of a dead world, the last human drifted into a future where they would never be forgotten.